My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 38 years old. And exactly 2 weeks before my mother's funeral, I discovered she had been lying to me for 23 years. It started with a letter. Not an email, not a phone call, but a thick manila envelope that arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was still in my pajamas, drinking coffee at my kitchen table in suburban Dallas. The return address was from a law firm in Philadelphia I had never heard of, Morrison, Chen and Associates. I set the envelope down on the table without opening it. My mother had died just 5 days earlier, and I was still moving through the world in a fog of grief, doing things automatically because I didn't know what else to do. Making coffee, feeding my cat, showering, existing. But something about that envelope felt heavy. Not physically, but in the way some objects carry weight beyond their mass. Like walking into a room and knowing immediately that something has changed, even before you can name what it is. I opened it with a letter opener my mother had given me for my 30th birthday. The one with the pearl handle she said made everything feel more important, more ceremonial. Inside were 3 documents. A cover letter from an attorney named David Chen, a certified copy of a will I had never seen, and a bank statement showing an account balance that made me drop the pages onto the table. $487,000. My mother, who had claimed she couldn't afford to retire, who had worked 2 jobs until the day she died, who had refused every offer of financial help, had $487,000. Before I tell you what I discovered next, and how I exposed the truth in front of 300 people at my mother's memorial service, let me ask you, what time is it where you are right now? Where are you watching from? And have you ever discovered that someone you loved completely had been living a double life? I'm asking because I need to know I'm not alone in this. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and this is the story of how my mother's death revealed a truth that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family. But it's also the story of how I found the strength to reclaim what was mine. Let me give you some context, because to understand why this hurt so much, you need to understand my family. My mother, Patricia Morrison, was a single parent for most of my life. My father left when I was 5 years old, vanishing one morning without explanation. He didn't call. He didn't send birthday cards. He simply ceased to exist in our lives. My mother never spoke badly about him. When I asked about him as a child, she would say, "He wasn't ready to be a father, sweetheart, but that doesn't mean he didn't love you." She said it with such conviction that I believed her, even though I had no evidence either way. She worked 2 jobs to support us. Days as a receptionist at a dental office in Plano. Nights cleaning offices for a commercial cleaning company. I remember falling asleep on the couch waiting for her to come home, waking up to her shaking my shoulder gently, telling me to move to bed. We didn't have much, but we had each other, or so I thought. My mother was frugal to the point of being miserly. She clipped coupons religiously. She bought generic brands even when the name brand was on sale. She wore the same 3 dresses on rotation for years. When I asked why we couldn't afford nice things, she would say, "We're saving for your future, Sarah. College, a house, your wedding." I believed her. I thought we were struggling because she was sacrificing for my future. When I got accepted to UT Austin with a partial scholarship, my mother cried. Not happy tears, but the kind of tears that come from relief. "You'll have a better life than I did," she said, holding my face in her hands. "You'll never have to struggle the way I did." I graduated with a degree in accounting, got a job at a mid-sized firm in Dallas, and started sending my mother money every month. Just a few $100s at first, then more as I got raises. I wanted to give back, to show her that her sacrifices hadn't been in vain. She always refused. "Keep your money, Sarah. Save for your own future. I'm fine." But I knew she wasn't fine. I knew she was still working 2 jobs at 62 years old. I knew her back hurt from all those years of cleaning. I knew she deserved to rest. So I kept sending money, and she kept refusing it. 2 weeks before she died, I drove up to Philadelphia to visit her. She lived in the same small row house she had rented for 20 years, in the same neighborhood where I grew up. Nothing had changed. The same peeling paint on the front steps, the same creaky floorboards, the same smell of lemon polish and old books. She looked smaller than I remembered, frailer. Her hair, once thick and dark, was now thin and gray. Her hands trembled slightly when she poured tea. "Mom," I said, sitting across from her at the small kitchen table, "we need to talk about something." "What is it, sweetheart?" "I want to hire a caregiver for you, someone to help with the house, with cooking, with everything. You shouldn't be working anymore." She shook her head immediately. "I don't need help, I'm fine." "You're not fine, Mom. You're 64 years old. You've been working 2 jobs for 40 years. It's time to rest." "I'll rest when I'm dead," she said, and I knew she meant it. We argued for an hour. She refused every solution I proposed. Finally, I said something I had never said to her before. "Mom, I'm sending you money every month. Why won't you let me help you?" She went very still. "What money?" "The transfers. The $500 a month I've been sending for the past 3 years." Her face went pale. "Sarah, I haven't received any money from you." We checked her bank statements together. No transfers, no deposits, nothing. I called my bank that same day. The customer service representative confirmed that I had been sending $500 monthly to an account ending in 4782. But that wasn't my mother's account number. Someone had been intercepting my money. I drove back to Dallas that night in a state of shock. The 8-hour drive gave me too much time to think, to replay every conversation, every interaction, searching for clues I had missed. Who would intercept my money, and why? The next morning, I called the bank again. I demanded to know who owned account 4782. The representative said she couldn't share that information due to privacy laws. I told her it was my money, that I had been sending it under false pretenses, that someone was committing fraud. She transferred me to the fraud department. The fraud investigator, a woman named Linda Chen, listened to my story carefully. "Ms. Mitchell," she said, "I can tell you that the account in question was opened 23 years ago. The primary account holder is listed as Patricia Morrison, but there is an authorized user on the account." "Who?" "I can't disclose that without a police report." I filed a police report that same day. The detective assigned to my case, a man named Robert Hayes, took my statement and promised to investigate. 2 days later, my mother died. It was sudden, a massive stroke. She was at work, cleaning offices, when she collapsed. The cleaning company found her at 6 in the morning. By the time the paramedics arrived, it was too late. I flew to Philadelphia immediately. I made funeral arrangements. I notified family. I moved through the motions of grief like an actor following a script. And then, 5 days after her death, the letter arrived. I picked up the pages I had dropped on the table and read them carefully. The cover letter from David Chen was brief. "Dear Ms. Mitchell, I am writing to inform you that you are the sole beneficiary of the estate of Patricia Morrison, who passed away on March 15, 2024. Enclosed, please find a copy of the will, executed on March 10, 2024, 5 days before her death. I understand the timing may seem unusual, but your mother was quite insistent that this be finalized immediately. The estate includes a bank account with a current balance of $487,293.18, a safety deposit box at First National Bank, and personal property. Please contact me at your earliest convenience to discuss next steps. Sincerely, David Chen, Esq." I stared at the bank balance, $487,000. My mother, who had claimed she couldn't afford to retire, who had worked 2 jobs until the day she died, who had refused every offer of financial help, had $487,000. I read the will next. It was brief, typed on legal paper, signed by my mother with a trembling hand. "I, Patricia Morrison, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath my entire estate to my daughter, Sarah Ann Mitchell. I apologize for the lies I have told. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." That was it. No explanation, no context, just an apology. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at those documents, trying to make sense of them. My mother had lied to me. For 23 years, she had lied to me. But why? I called David Chen that afternoon. He was expecting my call. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, "I'm so sorry for your loss." "Mr. Chen, I need to understand something. My mother had almost $500,000. Why did she keep working? Why did she refuse my help? Why did she lie to me?" There was a pause on the other end. "I can't answer that, Ms. Mitchell. Your mother never discussed her personal finances with me beyond executing the will. Is there anything else in the estate? The safety deposit box?" "Yes, I haven't opened it yet. I thought you might want to be present." We arranged to meet at the bank on Monday. I hung up the phone and sat in silence, my mind racing. Who was the authorized user on that bank account? Who had been taking my money? And what was in that safety deposit box? Monday morning, I met David Chen at First National Bank in Philadelphia. He was in his 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a leather briefcase that looked expensive but worn, like he had owned it for years. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, shaking my hand, "I wish we could have met under better circumstances." "Me too," I said. We went to the safety deposit box vault, a cold, sterile room with rows of metal boxes built into the walls. The bank manager, a woman named Susan Walsh, verified our identification and escorted us to box 847. She unlocked the box with her key, then handed me mine. "I'll give you some privacy," she said, and left the room. The box was larger than I expected, about the size of a shoebox. I pulled it out and set it on the table. David Chen stood slightly behind me, giving me space. Inside were 3 items: a photograph, a stack of letters tied with ribbon, and a legal document. I picked up the photograph first. It showed a young woman, maybe 25 years old, holding a baby. The woman had dark hair and a bright smile. The baby was wrapped in a pink blanket. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, "Sarah and me, June 1986. I stared at it. That was me. But the woman holding me wasn't my mother. She was younger, happier, with a smile I had rarely seen on my mother's face. I set the photograph down and picked up the letters. There were 12 of them, dated from 1986 to 1991, all addressed to my mother, all signed with the same name, Elizabeth Morrison. I opened the first letter with trembling hands. "Patricia, I hope this letter finds you well. Sarah is growing so fast. She's starting to walk and she's into everything. I can't keep up with her. I know we agreed that you would raise her, that it would be better for her to have a stable home. But I miss her so much. Every day I think about her. I wonder if she's happy, if she's healthy, if she knows that her mother loves her. I know I made the right choice. I was too young, too poor, too alone to raise a child. But knowing it was the right choice doesn't make it hurt less. Please send me a photograph sometime. Just one, so I can see her face. Love. Elizabeth." I read it twice, then I read it again. Elizabeth, my mother, the woman in the photograph. My mother wasn't my mother. She was my grandmother. I sat back in the chair, the room spinning slightly. 23 years of lies crashed down on me. Every story, every explanation, every "I'm doing this for your own good" had been a lie. David Chen cleared his throat gently. "Ms. Mitchell, are you all right?" "No," I said honestly, "I'm not. Would you like to take a break?" I shook my head. "I need to know everything. What's this document?" He handed me the legal document. It was an adoption decree, dated September 1986. My mother, no, my grandmother, had legally adopted me 3 months after I was born. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the final page. A letter my grandmother had written, dated 1 week before her death. "Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you know the truth. I'm so sorry. I should have told you years ago, but I was afraid. Afraid you would hate me, afraid you would leave me, afraid of losing the only family I had left. Your mother, Elizabeth, was my daughter. She was 17 when she got pregnant. The father was a boy from school, 18 years old with no job and no prospects. They weren't in love. It was a mistake, a moment of stupidity at a party. Elizabeth wanted to keep you. She fought for you. But I knew what her life would be like. A teenage mother, dropping out of school, working minimum wage jobs, struggling every day. I had seen it happen to other girls. I knew how it ended. So I made a choice. I told her that you would be better off with me, that she could finish school, go to college, have a real future, that she could visit you, be part of your life, but that I would raise you. She agreed, though it broke her heart. We filed the adoption papers. I raised you as my own daughter. But Elizabeth never stopped loving you. She wrote to me every week for 5 years. She sent photographs. She asked about you constantly. And then, 3 years ago, she died. Car accident. She was only 40 years old. I never told you about her because I was selfish. I wanted you to be mine, just mine. And now I'm dying and I can't take that secret to my grave. The money in the bank account, that's from Elizabeth's life insurance. She named me as the beneficiary, though I don't know why. Maybe she thought I would need it. Maybe she was trying to take care of me, even though I had taken her daughter away from her. I never spent it. I couldn't, it was blood money, so I kept working. I kept struggling. As penance, I suppose. I'm sorry, Sarah, for every lie, every secret. Every time I chose my needs over yours, I hope you can forgive me. Love. Patricia. I finished reading and sat in silence. The vault was cold, but I was sweating. My hands were shaking. David Chen watched me carefully. Ms. Mitchell, would you like me to give you some time? I shook my head. No, I need to know something. The bank account. The one with the money, who was the authorized user? He hesitated. Are you sure you want to know? Yes. He pulled out a document from his briefcase. The authorized user was Elizabeth Morrison, your biological mother. I stared at him, but she's dead. She died 3 years ago. I know, but the account was never updated. Technically, the money should have been transferred to her estate. But since she had no will and no other beneficiaries, and since Patricia was the primary account holder, the money remained in the account. I thought about the $500 a month I had been sending, the money that had disappeared. Mr. Chen, can you find out who withdrew that money? The monthly transfers I made. He nodded. I can subpoena those records, but Ms. Mitchell, I need to warn you. This might not be what you want to know. I need to know, I said. I need to know everything. The bank records arrived 2 weeks later. I was sitting in my apartment in Dallas when the certified mail came. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. The records showed that every month for 3 years, $500 had been withdrawn from the account. But not by Elizabeth, not by my grandmother. By someone named Jennifer Walsh. I didn't know anyone named Jennifer Walsh. I had never heard that name in my life. I called David Chen immediately. Mr. Chen, who is Jennifer Walsh? There was a long pause. Sarah, sit down. This is going to be difficult. Who is she? She's your aunt, Patricia's other daughter. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I have an aunt. Yes, Jennifer is Elizabeth's younger sister. She's 42 years old. She lives in Philadelphia. Why didn't you tell me about her? Your grandmother's will didn't mention her. As far as I knew, there was no relationship between them. But she's been taking my money. For 3 years, she's been stealing from me. Sarah, I need you to come to Philadelphia. There's something you need to see. I flew to Philadelphia the next day. David Chen met me at the airport and drove me to a small row house in South Philadelphia. It looked just like the house where I grew up, but smaller, more rundown. Jennifer lives here, I asked. Yes, she's expecting you. I didn't want to go inside. I wanted to get back on the plane and fly home and pretend I had never discovered any of this. But I needed answers. The door opened before we could knock. Jennifer Walsh stood in the doorway, and for the first time I saw the resemblance. The same dark hair, the same brown eyes, the same shape of the face. She was thinner than my grandmother, with lines around her eyes that spoke of worry and stress. She wore a faded sweatshirt and jeans, and her feet were bare. "Sarah," she said, and her voice cracked. "Come in." The house was clean but sparse. No photographs on the walls, no decorations, just bare necessities. We sat in the small living room, Jennifer on one couch, me on the other, David Chen in a chair between us. "I'm sorry," Jennifer said immediately. "I'm so sorry for what I did. I should have asked. I should have told you. But I was desperate." "Tell me," I said. "Tell me everything." She took a deep breath. "Mom and I never got along. She was always harder on me than on Elizabeth. When Elizabeth got pregnant, Mom focused all her attention on her, on the baby, on you." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "I was 16 when you were born. I remember holding you and you were so small, so perfect. But Mom barely looked at me. It was like I didn't exist. Elizabeth moved out when you were 2. She got a job, found an apartment, tried to build a life. But she was always struggling, and Mom wouldn't help her. She said Elizabeth had made her bed and needed to lie in it." Jennifer wiped her eyes. "I tried to help Elizabeth. I sent her money when I could, but I was in school, working part-time. I didn't have much. Then, 3 years ago, Elizabeth died. A drunk driver ran a red light. She was gone instantly." Jennifer's voice broke. Mom didn't even cry, she just said, "Elizabeth made poor choices," and went back to watching TV. I was so angry, so furious. Elizabeth was her daughter, and she didn't even care. I found out about the insurance money later. $500,000. Elizabeth had finally gotten life insurance through her job, and she named Mom as the beneficiary. I don't know why. Maybe she was trying to make amends. Maybe she thought Mom would use it to help me. Mom didn't tell me about the money. I found out by accident when I got a call from the insurance company asking for banking information to transfer the funds. By then, Mom had already moved the money to a new account. I confronted her. I asked why she hadn't told me. She said the money was for Sarah, for your future, that it wasn't for me. Jennifer's face twisted with pain. "But then I saw you sending her money every month, $500, and I was working 2 jobs, barely making rent, struggling to survive. And I thought it wasn't fair. That Mom had lied to both of us, that she was hoarding money that should have been shared. So I called the bank. I lied and said I was Patricia Morrison, that I had lost my ID, that I needed to add myself as an authorized user. They believed me. And for 3 years, I've been taking that $500. She looked at me, her eyes desperate. "I know it was wrong, I know I should have asked, but I was so angry. At Mom, at Elizabeth, at you, at everyone. I just wanted. I don't know what I wanted, justice, I guess, or revenge." I sat in silence, processing everything. My aunt, my biological aunt, who had been stealing from me out of anger and desperation. "Why didn't you just ask me?" I said finally. "If you needed help, why didn't you just ask?" Jennifer laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Ask you? You didn't even know I existed. How could I ask you for money when you didn't know we were family?" She was right. Of course she was right. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. She looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "The money, do you have it? Can you pay it back?" She shook her head. "No, I spent it on rent, on food, on bills. I don't have it anymore." I nodded. "Then there's nothing to be done." David Chen cleared his throat. "Sarah, you could press charges. This is fraud, theft." "I know," I said, "but what would that accomplish? She spent the money. She can't pay it back. Putting her in jail won't change that." I looked at Jennifer. "You're my aunt, my only living biological relative. I don't want to lose you too." Jennifer started crying. Not quiet tears, but great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry." I didn't hug her. I wasn't ready for that, but I didn't leave either. We sat there for a long time, Jennifer crying, me staring at the floor, David Chen looking uncomfortable. Finally, I stood up. "I need time to think, to process all of this." Jennifer nodded. "I understand." "I'll be in touch," I said. I walked out of the house and stood on the sidewalk, breathing in the cold Philadelphia air. David Chen followed me. "Sarah, are you all right?" No, I said honestly, but I will be. What do you want to do about Jennifer? I don't know, yet. I went back to Dallas and tried to return to normal life, but nothing felt normal anymore. Everything was different. I had a family, a biological family, an aunt who had made terrible choices but who was still my blood. I spent weeks thinking about what to do. I talked to my therapist about it. I journaled. I prayed. Finally, I made a decision. But before I could act on it, I received a phone call that changed everything. It was from Susan Walsh, the bank manager who had helped me access the safety deposit box. "Ms. Mitchell," she said, her voice urgent, "I need to tell you something. It's about Jennifer Walsh." "What about her?" "She's been trying to withdraw the entire balance, all $487,000. She came in yesterday with forged documents, claiming to be the sole beneficiary of Patricia Morrison's estate." My blood ran cold. "What did you do?" "We flagged the transaction. We're holding the funds. But Sarah, this is criminal. She's not just stealing from you anymore. She's attempting bank fraud." I felt something snap inside me. This wasn't desperation anymore. This was calculated theft. "Thank you for calling me, Susan. I'll handle this." I hung up and immediately called David Chen. "She's trying to steal the rest of the money. I need to expose her, publicly." "Sarah, what are you thinking?" "My mother's memorial service is next week. 300 people will be there. Family, friends, neighbors. Jennifer will be there too." "You want to confront her there?" "Yes." "Sarah, that's not wise. It's emotionally charged. It could backfire." "I don't care. She's had 3 years to come clean. 3 years to ask for help. Instead, she stole from me. And now she's trying to steal the rest." I paused. "I'm going to expose her, David, with or without your help." There was a long silence. Then David said, "If you're going to do this, you need evidence. Solid evidence, not just accusations." "I have it. The bank records, the forged documents, the police report." "Then I'll help you, but Sarah, are you sure this is what you want? Once you expose her publicly, there's no going back." I thought about my grandmother, about the lies, about the money I had sent, about the aunt who had stolen from me for 3 years. "I'm sure." The memorial service was held at St. Mary's Church in Philadelphia, the same church where my grandmother had attended Mass every Sunday for 40 years. 300 people filled the pews, neighbors from the old neighborhood, former coworkers, family friends, people my grandmother had helped over the years. And Jennifer. She sat in the third row, wearing black, her face streaked with tears. She looked small, fragile, like someone who had suffered a great loss. I stood at the front of the church, next to the podium where I was scheduled to give a eulogy. David Chen sat in the front row, a folder of documents on his lap. The service proceeded normally. Prayers, hymns, readings from scripture. Then it was my turn to speak. I walked to the podium and looked out at the congregation. 300 faces stared back at me, some sympathetic, some curious, some judgmental. I took a deep breath. "My grandmother," I began, "was a woman of many contradictions. She worked 2 jobs until the day she died, yet she had almost $500,000 in the bank. She claimed she couldn't afford to retire, yet she refused every offer of financial help. She told me she was saving for my future, yet she never spent a dime of the money she had." I paused. The church was silent. "She also lied to me. For 23 years, she lied to me about who I was, about who my mother was, about who our family was." I heard gasps from the congregation. Jennifer's head snapped up. "But that's not what I want to talk about today." I looked directly at Jennifer. "What I want to talk about is justice." Jennifer's face went pale. 3 years ago, my biological mother, Elizabeth Morrison, died in a car accident. She left a life insurance policy worth $500,000. My grandmother was named as the beneficiary. I held up the bank records. But that money was never meant for my grandmother. It was meant for Elizabeth's family, for Elizabeth's other daughter, for Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer stood up. "Sarah, what are you doing?" I ignored her. Jennifer needed that money. She was struggling. She was working 2 jobs, barely making rent. And when she found out about the insurance money, she made a choice. I turned to face the congregation. She lied to the bank. She claimed to be Patricia Morrison. She added herself as an authorized user on the account. And for 3 years, she stole $500 a month from me, from the money I was sending to my grandmother. The church erupted in murmurs. People turned to stare at Jennifer. "That's not true," Jennifer shouted. "She's lying." I held up another document. "Is this a lie too, Jennifer? This is a withdrawal request you filed yesterday, forging my grandmother's signature, attempting to withdraw the entire balance, $487,000. Jennifer's face crumpled. "You don't understand. I was desperate. I needed." "You needed to ask," I said quietly. "You needed to tell the truth. You needed to come to me and say, 'Sarah, I'm your aunt. I'm struggling. Can you help me?'" I paused. "Instead, you stole. For 3 years, you stole. And when that wasn't enough, you tried to steal the rest." Jennifer sank back into her seat, sobbing. I looked out at the congregation, at the 300 people who had known my grandmother, who had known Jennifer, who had known the truth all along and said nothing. "My grandmother lied to me," I said, "but at least she had the decency to apologize. At least she had the decency to leave me the truth in a letter." I looked at Jennifer one last time. "Jennifer Walsh, you are not welcome in my family. You are not welcome in my life. And if you ever try to contact me again, I will press charges." I stepped away from the podium. The church was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. David Chen stood up and walked to my side. "Are you all right?" I nodded. "I'm done." We walked out of the church together, leaving 300 people in stunned silence behind us. I went back to Dallas and tried to rebuild my life, but nothing felt normal anymore. Everything was different. I had exposed the truth, publicly, painfully, irrevocably. Jennifer never contacted me again. I heard through David Chen that she had moved to another state, trying to start over. I hoped she would find peace. I hoped she would learn to ask for help instead of stealing. But I never forgave her, not completely. Forgiveness, I learned, is not a switch you flip. It's not a decision you make once and forget. It's a process, a journey, a daily choice. And some days, I chose not to forgive. I started seeing a therapist, a warm, middle-aged woman who helped me dismantle piece by piece the 23 years I had spent next to a woman who had lied to me. I slowly relearned how to trust myself, my intuition, my judgment of character. I reclaimed my right to say no and my right to walk away. And every Saturday, I continued to drive out to see my grandmother's grave. The highway, the dirt road, the wooden gate, the whistling kettle, the apple butter, the blue flower mugs. This ritual kept me anchored. One day, about 6 months after the memorial service, I was sitting at my grandmother's grave, talking to her like I used to when she was alive. "Grandma," I said, "I exposed Jennifer. I told everyone the truth. Was that the right thing to do?" The wind whispered through the trees. No answer. "I miss you," I said. "I miss the lies. I miss the comfort. I miss believing that you were who I thought you were." I wiped my eyes. "But I don't miss the secrets. I don't miss the fear. I don't miss living in a world built on lies." I stood up and brushed the dirt from my jeans. "I hope you can forgive me," I said, "for exposing the truth, for hurting Jennifer, for not being the granddaughter you wanted." I turned to leave. Then I stopped. "No," I said, "I don't need your forgiveness. I did what was right. I exposed the truth. I protected myself. I honored my biological mother's memory." I looked back at the grave. And I'm proud of that. I started a new life, not instantly, and not without hard work. The first few months dragged like thick molasses. I went to work, came back to my quiet apartment, fed my cat, lay on the couch, and stared at the ceiling. I started seeing a therapist, a warm, middle-aged woman who helped me dismantle piece by piece the 23 years I had spent next to a woman who had lied to me. Sarah slowly relearned how to trust herself, her intuition, her judgment of character. She reclaimed her right to say no and her right to walk away. And every Saturday, she continued to drive out to see her grandmother's grave, not to ask for forgiveness, not to seek closure, but to remember. To remember that the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a comfortable lie. To remember that family is complicated, that love and lies can coexist, that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and healing doesn't mean erasing. To remember that sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are the same people who love us the most. They just don't know how to show it. 1 year later, I received a letter, no return address, no signature, just a single sentence written in shaky handwriting. "I'm sorry for everything." I read it once, then I set it on fire. Not out of anger, not out of hatred, but out of self-respect. Some apologies come too late. Some wounds never fully heal. And some truths, once exposed, can never be buried again. And that's okay. Because the truth will set you free. But first, it'll make you fight. So tell me honestly, have you ever had to expose someone you loved? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself? How did you find the strength to speak your truth? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. You're not alone. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, the truth will set you free, but first, it'll make you fight. I'll see you in the next one.